So we got the setup going on right here. And as you can see, I'm currently heating, and we're gonna heat the porcelain for about 5 minutes. And the reason why we're heating the porcelain for 5 minutes is just to drive off any kind of moisture that is inside the porcelain. And so once we're done with the 5 minutes, then we're gonna go ahead and start let it cool down, so that we can directly heat it onto the mass. Again, it can mess up the scale, and then two, the effects of the measurement could affect it based off of buoyancy. And so what we're gonna do is just let it cool down for a little bit, and then we'll get the mass of the porcelain dish. All right, so the 5 minutes are up, and so I'm gonna get these tongs, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna transfer the evaporating dish into another wire gauze here on the plate. And so I don't want to directly place it on the actual plate. I want some air to get underneath so it cools a little bit faster. And two, you don't want to shock also the transition of the temperatures could be detrimental. And so we're just going to let it cool down, and then we're going to get the mass of it. Okay. Okay, we've allowed our evaporating dish to cool, so now we're going to take the mass of the evaporating dish. We're going to turn on our scale, and then as we turn on our scale, we're going to let it zero it out. And so as we let it zero out, we're going to place the evaporating dish on the scale, take your recording, and then what we're going to do next is measure out our zinc. Okay. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our granulated zinc. And so we need to add about 0.5 grams of it. And so I'm going to go ahead and zero out the evaporating dish on the scale so that I can add my 0.5 grams. And so now you also have to be careful, make sure that there's no heat source around the zinc. It can potentially catch on fire. All right. And so as you can see, as we measured out our 0.5 grams of the zinc, go ahead and take your recording. And there it is, 0.5 grams of the zinc. Now I wanted to take another measurement. Now this is going to be the mass of the zinc and the evaporating dish collectively together. Okay, just for sake keeps, we end up with 44.9. Okay. So the next thing that we have to do is we're going to have to measure out. We have to use our 6 molar HCl, and you have to really be careful with the 6 molar HCl because it is corrosive, and you don't want any burning to happen or any kind of reaction to happen on your skin. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure out 15 milliliters of your HCl, and then once we measure it out, we're going to add it to our granulated zinc. We're going to stir a little just to make sure that we increase the surface area and make sure that the acid actually gets all of the granulated zinc. And then from there, if need be, right, then you add 5 milliliters of acid in increments. You add 5 milliliters of acid if needed. Every increment that you add, just in case not all the zinc has dissolved. Okay. But we might take a little consideration here. You shouldn't really exceed more than maybe 10 milliliters, just for the fact that you might, since sometimes the zinc or the compounds that you're working with have been sitting around for a long time, that they might be slightly oxidized, that it might be, or they could be contaminated as well. So I would not suggest, from prior experience, not to exceed 10 milliliters of additional HCl from the 15 milliliters that you originally added. And so we're going to go ahead and add our 15 milliliters. And we have a 25 graduated cylinder here, 25 milliliter graduated cylinder. We're gonna add 15 milliliters of the acid. And we're right there. Gonna go ahead and close off our cap. And I'm going to show you our measurement. As you can see, right at the 15 milliliter mark, meniscus underneath. The measurement line of 15 milliliters is underneath the meniscus, so we're good to go. And now all we're gonna do is we're gonna transfer over here and add our acid to our zinc, slowly but surely. You don't want to have anything excited happening or going on. And as you can see, some gas is being released, so definitely you do not want to have a flame around. If you all can guess what that gas is coming out. Let's see if I can zoom in for you all a little bit more. You can see the bubbles going on. You are producing a very sexy and flammable gas. So like I said, you do make sure that your burner is off. As you can see, it is off. Gonna get some paper towels. We're gonna continue to make our additions. I'm going to try to stir so that we increase the amount of zinc being used up. Now you don't want to be so drastic and really completely moving it very hard, because it can tip over, and as you can see, I'm not holding it with my other hand. Slightly wouldn't suggest it, you just got to be delicate. If you'd like to, you can, but you also run the risk of it spilling over onto your hand. So we're just gonna kind of wait for the reaction to finish. We're gonna make our last addition of 15 milliliters, and if we need some more, we will measure out 5 milliliters and add some more. And we're just going to go ahead and wait for the reaction to proceed and finish. Okay, as you can see, after we added our 15 milliliters of hydrochloric acid, you can see here that we don't have any residue left over from the zinc, so that means all of it was consumed. So then now all we're gonna have to do is make a little bath. And in making that little bath, we're gonna need some water and a graduated cylinder, as you can see here. And we're gonna set it up slightly higher on our burner this time. Make sure that it sits down nicely so that it's not tilting over. And then the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna place our evaporating dish on top of our water bath, and then we're gonna heat in this form so that we don't heat up directly and get some of that acid splashed all over the place. And so that's one of our biggest and main concerns at this point. And so then now all we're gonna do is turn on our burner and start the reaction. Okay, so now we're gonna turn on our burner and we're gonna make our first initial heat. And so we're gonna light up our burner. And then we have to make sure that the flame is not, we don't want too much excitement. We want to heat slowly and surely. And so I believe that should work, and we'll just measure it. We'll just kind of keep checking on it and make sure we don't get some excitement. And so what we're trying to do now is, now that the reaction happened between zinc and chlorine, hydrochloric acid, the gas that you saw coming out was hydrogen gas. And like I said, we had to make sure that there was no fire or heat source around it, because we, could cause some excitement. And so in here we have a little bit of course, because the acid does have water, we got to get rid of the water, and what should be left over should be our zinc chloride. And so we're going to heat it indirectly, like I said. We don't want to have some excitement going on. And so from there on out, that's it. After heating for a little bit, we can see that there is a little bit of evaporization happening. So just make sure to take note. We're going to continue, make sure that when we make our heating, keep track to make sure that once the liquid is evaporated, that we don't melt the actual zinc chloride. Okay, so that's one of the things that we have to look forward. And so we'll continue heating, and then we'll revisit this in some time. As you can see, as we continue to heat, some of the solution has evaporated. We're just gonna have to wait a little bit longer so that we get our zinc chloride remaining just on there. So we'll come and check it out a little later. And so we're almost done heating. If you can see, we're almost to the end. Hopefully I won't have to transfer out. We're also running out of water. But in any case, we're almost done to the end. We've almost done evaporating all of the water from our solution. So I had to go ahead and change the beaker. I ran out of water. So then I replaced it, and we're almost done. We're almost to the point where there is hopefully going to be left over nothing but hopefully white powder. And so here we go. We'll see what happens. So now that we have a small amount of solution left over, what we're going to do now is we're going to heat directly. And as you can see, we have a small amount of liquid. Now we have to control the amount of heat because we don't want to have any splatter happening. And so we just got to make sure that it's not too much heat going into our evaporating dish. Okay, so as you can see, it is bubbling out, and so we are going to just wait and then make our final measurement. And then so we've taken out pretty much more, actually I think it's all of the moisture is out. If you can notice, we have a little bit of white substance at the bottom, at the base, and those white beautiful crystals as well as the solid is gonna be our zinc chloride. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna continue heating it just to make sure that there is no water left over in there, and I'm gonna keep heating maybe another 5 minutes, and then once I complete the heating, then I'm gonna take off the evaporating dish onto my wire gauze over here and let it cool. And once we let it cool, we'll make our measurement, our mass measurement, and then I'm gonna place it again on the heat and see if the mass changes. If the mass doesn't change, then we're good to go. Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and heat for another 5 minutes or so, and then make our measurement. Okay, and hopefully you can see it there. Awesome. So all we're gonna do now is get the mass of the evaporating dish. Once it's cooled down, and so we'll get it on there. And the mass of the evaporating dish of what zinc chloride is supposed to be is gonna be 45.4647. And then what we're gonna do now is we're gonna heat again for about 5-10 minutes, and then make sure that we control our heat so that it's not so that we don't melt the substance. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and heat again for about 5 minutes and make sure that the mass that we have there doesn't change. Okay. So now we're gonna do our secondary heating. So this is the second time after we just took the mass of what was supposed to be zinc chloride in this case. And so we're just gonna heat up for a little bit, make sure we don't melt it, and then take up our secondary mass. And if it doesn't change, we're good to go. So as we make a secondary measurement, there you go.